The day was everything Clara had ever dreamed of. A picture-perfect September afternoon. The sun, a warm, golden paintbrush, colored the leaves of the old oak trees just so. There she was, a vision in white lace, walking toward the man she loved, Liam Hayes. Her smile was radiant, genuine. It was a smile that reached all the way to her eyes, lighting them up with a hope that felt infinite. They had met just a year before, a whirlwind romance that felt like something out of a storybook. He was charming, attentive, and he looked at her as if she were the only person in the world. Their vows were promises whispered under that vast, blue sky. Promises of forever. A future filled with laughter, a small house with a garden, and maybe, just maybe, the pitter-patter of little feet. Liam was the steady hand she had been looking for. He worked in construction, his hands strong and capable, yet they held hers with such gentleness. He talked of building their dream home himself, board by board. Clara, a graphic designer with a flair for color and light, had already sketched out the plans on countless napkins and notepads. They imagined cozy winter nights by a fireplace, summer barbecues with friends, a life built on a foundation of love and shared dreams. For their honeymoon, they drove up the coast, a simple, sweet trip. They stopped at small towns, ate at roadside diners, and watched the sunset over the Pacific. It was perfect. They were perfect. Or so it seemed. Looking back at the photographs, it's all there. The joy, the unfiltered, unscripted happiness. In one shot, Liam is dipping Clara in a dance, her head thrown back in laughter. In another, they are cutting the cake, their hands joined together on the knife, a symbol of their new, shared life. Friends and family surrounded them, their faces reflecting the couple's own delight. No one saw a single cloud on the horizon. Not one. There was no hint of the darkness that was gathering, no premonition of the storm that was about to break. It was, by all accounts, a flawless, beautiful beginning to a story that everyone believed would have a happy ending. Love, after all, was supposed to conquer all. But love can be blind, and sometimes the person you pledge your life to is a stranger. A stranger with secrets buried so deep they are invisible to the naked eye. Clara returned from that idyllic honeymoon and settled back into her routine, basking in the glow of being Mrs. Hayes. She would pack Liam's lunch in the morning, kissing him goodbye as he headed off to work. He would call her in the afternoon, just to hear her voice. It was the simple, sweet rhythm of married life. A rhythm that, in just a few short days, would be shattered by a sound so violent, so final, that it would echo for the rest of her life. A perfect beginning, about to meet its brutal, tragic end. It started with a whisper. A rumor on the late-night news. A robbery at a gas station on the edge of town. An attendant, a young college kid working the graveyard shift, had been shot. The description of the getaway car was vague at first. A red, four-door sedan. Nothing more. In a city of 500,000 people, there were thousands of red sedans. It was a detail that barely registered for most viewers, just another sad story in a world full of them. For Clara Hayes, it was just background noise as she waited for Liam to come home from a late shift he said he'd picked up. She had dozed off on the couch, the television murmuring a lullaby of distant sirens and somber news anchors. But then came another incident, the very next night. Another robbery, this time at a 24-hour convenience store across town. The details were chillingly similar. A lone gunman, a demand for cash, and then violence. This time, the clerk was killed, and that red sedan was seen again, peeling out of the parking lot and disappearing into the night. Now, the police were paying closer attention. The media started calling it the Red Sedan Bandit. A sense of fear began to creep into the city's consciousness. Locks were double-checked. People looked over their shoulders a little more often. The description of the car became a little clearer. A late-model red sedan with a distinctive dent on the passenger side door. That detail. That one. Small detail. The dent. Clara knew that dent. It was a souvenir from a careless moment in a grocery store parking lot months ago. It was on her car, her bright cherry red sedan, the one Liam was using. He'd told her his truck was in the shop, a complicated transmission issue that would take a week or so to fix. It made sense. She worked from home, so she didn't need her car during the day. He needed to get to his job sites. It was a simple, practical arrangement between a husband and wife. She never thought twice about it. Why would she? She trusted him. He was her husband. So when Liam came home late again, smelling of sweat and something else she couldn't quite name, a metallic, sharp scent, she just assumed it was from his construction job. He seemed tired, stressed. He'd snap at small things, then quickly apologize, pulling her into a tight embrace. He blamed it on the pressure of work, the long hours, and Clara, the loving, supportive new wife, believed him. She made him a cup of tea, she rubbed his shoulders, she told him everything would be okay. All the while, her red sedan sat in their driveway, cooling under the moonlight, carrying secrets she couldn't possibly imagine. A silent witness to a spree of terror that was drawing a dark, inescapable circle around her own life. The knock came on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks to the day after her wedding. It wasn't a friendly knock. It was firm, official. The kind that makes the coffee cup in your hand tremble just a little. Clara, dressed in her bathrobe, opened the door to find 2 detectives standing on her porch. Their faces were grim, their eyes scanning past her, into the tidy little home she was so proud of. One of them held up a badge. Detective Miller. He asked if she was Clara Hayes. He asked if she was the owner of a red 2023 sedan, license plate number 8 Victor Charlie 321. Her heart began to beat a little faster. "Yes," she said, "that's my car. It's right there." She pointed to the driveway. They asked to come in. The questions started out simple. Where had she been the last few nights? Who had access to her car? Clara answered honestly, calmly. She had been home. Her husband Liam had been using the car because his truck was being repaired. The detectives exchanged a look, a flicker of something she couldn't read. They asked where Liam was now. She told them he had just left for work. They asked for the name of the repair shop where his truck was. She gave them the name, the one Liam had told her. A small, nagging seed of doubt began to sprout in the back of her mind. Why were they asking all this? What was going on? Detective Miller's partner, Detective Sanchez, spoke up. His voice was softer, but the words were like stones. "Ma'am," he said, "your vehicle was witnessed leaving the scene of 2 armed robberies in the past 48 hours. At the second scene, a man was shot and killed." The room tilted. The air rushed out of Clara's lungs. It felt like a punch to the gut. Robbery, murder, her car. It was impossible. A mistake. They had the wrong car, the wrong person. She tried to explain. Liam couldn't have anything to do with this. He was a construction worker. He was her husband. They were just married. They had plans, a future. But the detectives were relentless. They had a search warrant. They began to move through her home, their professional detachment a stark contrast to the chaos erupting inside her. They looked in closets, under the bed. They went into the garage, and that's where they found it. Tucked away in a dusty corner, behind a stack of old paint cans, was a toolbox. Not one of Liam's usual work toolboxes. It was locked. When they pried it open, the contents spilled out onto the concrete floor. A black ski mask, a handgun, and stacks of cash, still bound in paper wrappers from the First National Bank. The same bank that owned the ATM at the convenience store where the clerk had been killed. And just like that, Clara's world shattered into a million pieces. The denial was a fortress Clara built around her mind. A thick wall of no. No, Liam would not do this. No, this is a terrible misunderstanding. No, our life is not a lie. She sat in the cold, sterile interrogation room, the detectives' questions a relentless tide against her defenses. They told her they had called the auto repair shop. Liam's truck wasn't there. It had never been there. They told her they had checked his work records. He hadn't been on a job site in over a week. He had been fired for not showing up. Every word was a hammer blow, chipping away at the reality she had so carefully constructed over the past year. She replayed every moment of the last 2 weeks. The way he was so tired. The stress, he said, was from work. The strange, sharp smell on his clothes. The late nights, he said, were for overtime. Lies. All of it. a carefully crafted web of deceit. And she, the adoring bride, had been caught in the center of it. The police wanted to know what she knew. When did she find out? Did she help him? Did she help him plan? Her pleas of innocence sounded weak, hollow, even to her own ears. How could she not have known? They were married. They shared a home, a bed, a car. The proximity, once a source of comfort, was now the very thing that condemned her. The evidence was a tidal wave, and she was drowning. They found gunshot residue on the passenger seat of her car. Her car! They found her fingerprints on the toolbox where the gun and money were hidden. Of course her fingerprints were on it. It was in her garage. She had probably moved it at some point, tidying up. But to the police, it was another link in a chain they were forging around her. They painted a picture of a willing accomplice. The loving wife who helped her husband count the stolen money, who washed the blood from his clothes, who provided the getaway car for his deadly excursions. It was a monstrous portrait, a distortion of everything she was, but it was starting to feel horribly real. The shock gave way to a chilling despair. Liam was arrested later that day, apprehended at a motel on the other side of the state. He didn't resist. When the news broke, Clara's name was right there alongside his. Liam and Clara Hayes, the newlywed killers. Her wedding photo, the one where she was laughing, was plastered all over the news, a cruel juxtaposition against the headlines of murder and robbery. Her friends stopped calling. Her family's whispers were a mixture of pity and suspicion. In the span of a few days, she had gone from a blushing bride to a suspected monster. Alone in a jail cell, the white lace of her wedding dress felt like a shroud. The courtroom was a theater of judgment. Bright lights, polished wood, and rows of strangers' eyes, all fixed on her. Clara sat beside her lawyer, a public defender with a kind but weary face. She felt small, exposed. The prosecutor, a sharp man with a voice that cut through the silence, laid out the case with chilling precision. He spoke of a Bonnie and Clyde for the modern age, a couple bound not by love, but by greed and a shared contempt for human life. He presented the evidence piece by piece, each one a nail in her coffin. The car, the gun, the money, her fingerprints, her lies to protect him, the lies she told because she believed his lies. Liam had taken a plea deal. In exchange for testifying against his own wife, he would receive a lighter sentence. And so, the man she had promised to love, honor, and cherish, took the stand. He looked different, thinner. His eyes were cold, empty. He pointed at Clara and told the jury that it was her idea. He said she was tired of being broke, that she pushed him, planned the robberies, and waited for him with the engine running. He twisted their shared dreams of a better life into a motive for murder. Every word he spoke was a betrayal, a final, brutal severing of the bond she once thought was unbreakable. The jury listened, their faces unreadable masks. Clara's defense seemed so fragile in comparison. Her lawyer argued that she was a victim too. A woman manipulated and deceived by a sociopath. A newlywed blinded by love and trust. Clara herself took the stand, her voice barely a whisper as she recounted her story. The story of a fairy tale romance that turned into a nightmare. She looked at the jury, her eyes pleading with them to see the truth. To see her, the woman who sketched dream houses on napkins, not the monster the prosecutor described. But in the face of Liam's testimony, and the mountain of circumstantial evidence, her words seemed to float away, unheard. The deliberation felt like an eternity. Clara sat in a holding cell, the silence pressing in on her. She thought of her wedding day, the warmth of the sun, the feel of Liam's hand in hers. Was any of it real? Or had she been a fool from the very beginning? Then, the call came. The jury had reached a verdict. She was led back into the courtroom, her hands trembling, her legs unsteady. The foreman, a grim-faced man who wouldn't meet her eye, stood and read the verdict. On the charge of first-degree murder, we the jury find the defendant, Clara Hayes, guilty. The word echoed in the silent room, a final damning judgment that sealed her fate. On one side of the courtroom, Clara's parents sat, slumped in their seats. Her mother's face was a mess of tears, a silent scream trapped behind her trembling lips. Her father, a man who had always been so strong, looked broken, aged a decade in a matter of weeks. They had watched their daughter, their bright, creative, loving girl, be transformed into a convicted murderer in the public eye. They had stood by her, visiting her in jail, assuring her of their belief in her innocence. But the verdict was a physical blow, knocking the last bit of hope from their bodies. Their future was once filled with thoughts of grandchildren. Now it was filled with prison visiting hours and appeals they couldn't afford. Across the aisle, Liam's family had their own cross to bear. His mother and father had attended every day of the trial, their expressions a mixture of shame, grief, and confusion. How could the boy they raised, the one who played Little League and went to church on Sundays, be capable of such violence? They listened as he confessed to robbery and murder, and then watched in horror as he condemned the woman he had just promised to love for a lifetime. They were pariahs in their own community, the parents of a killer. They had loved Clara, welcomed her into their family with open arms. Now, they were left to wonder which of the two people they loved was the monster, or if, somehow, they both were. Clara, in her prison cell, was an island of grief. The betrayal by Liam was a wound deeper than any other. It wasn't just that he had committed these horrific crimes, it was that he had so effortlessly sacrificed her to save himself. The love she felt had curdled into something toxic, a mixture of hatred and a profound, aching sorrow for the man she thought he was. She mourned that man, the one who had whispered promises to her under the old oak trees. She mourned the life they were supposed to have, and she mourned her own lost innocence, the person she was before her red sedan became a getaway car. The weight of the guilty verdict was crushing, an inescapable reality. The families, once joined by a happy wedding, were now linked by an unspeakable tragedy. There were no winners. Clara's parents lost their daughter to the prison system. Liam's parents lost their son to his own darkness and deceit. Phone calls between them, once filled with cheerful planning, ceased entirely. There was nothing to say. The chasm created by the crime, the lies, and the trial was too wide to cross. Two families, who had celebrated together under a sunny September sky, were now left to navigate their separate, shattered worlds, forever bound by the memory of a love that had ended in bloodshed and betrayal. Years from now, long after the headlines have faded and the courtroom has been filled with other dramas, the echoes of this tragedy will remain. They will linger in the quiet moments. They will live in the silence of two households that will never be the same. For Clara's family, every holiday, every birthday will be a painful reminder of her absence. Her empty chair at the dinner table will be a testament to a life unjustly stolen. They will fight for her, filing appeals, speaking to reporters, clinging to the hope that one day the world will see the truth they see. But the fight is exhausting, and hope can be a flickering flame in a relentless wind. Liam, serving his lesser sentence in a different prison, will one day walk free, but freedom will be its own kind of prison. He will carry the weight of what he did, the lives he took, the life he destroyed. His name will forever be linked to the red sedan bandit. He will see the faces of his victims in his dreams. He will hear the echo of his own lies in the courtroom. The charm that once won him a beautiful bride will be gone, replaced by the hard shell of a man who sold his soul for a few more years of freedom. His betrayal will be his legacy, a stain that can never be washed away. And what of Clara? She will grow old behind bars. Her world will shrink to the size of a concrete cell. The vibrant colors she once used in her designs will be replaced by the drab gray of prison uniforms. She will read letters from her parents, look at old photographs, and wonder about the life she might have had. The garden she never got to plant. The house Liam never got to build. The children she never got to hold. The love she thought was her salvation turned out to be her damnation. It's a cruel twist of fate, a reminder of how quickly a life can pivot on a single catastrophic choice made by someone else. The story of Liam and Clara Hayes serves as a chilling cautionary tale. It's a story about the masks people wear and the dark secrets they can hide, even from those who love them most. It shows how love, in its blindness, can make us vulnerable, and how trust, once shattered, can bring an entire world crashing down. The wedding photos will gather dust, a memorial to a brief, beautiful moment before the storm. And the lives of everyone touched by this tragedy will be forever marked by the shocking crime spree that changed everything, leaving only shattered pieces and the haunting echoes of what might have been.